Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and here's the other view. The world is on fire. If you don't believe me, turn on your television. Inflation is rampant, and we're more dependent on bad actors for our energy needs than ever. This budget takes all three problems and I believe makes it worse. President Biden ran as a steady hand on national security. How's that working out? He ran as a centrist, consensus-building candidate. Unfortunately, I don't believe that has materialized either, that his, not only his budget proposals, but his economic proposals on the domestic front would be the largest power grab in modern American history. The budget. More spending, more taxes, more debt. At a time, we need to go in the other direction. The budget regarding the defense needs of this country is woefully inadequate and dangerous. When you look at over the next decade of how much we spend on defense, you have to ask yourself, I mean, the threats we face, are they getting smaller or larger? Look at what's going on in the world today. We have Putin dismembering a democracy called Ukraine in front of us, committing war crimes on an industrial scale, and all of us in a pretty bipartisan fashion have condemned him, and I appreciate that. There's an effort ongoing to do a new Iranian nuclear deal, giving the Ayatollah, who I think is a religious Nazi, more cash and very little in return. You have China being a bad actor all over Asia, threatening to invade Taiwan and rewriting the world map. You got Rocket Man in North Korea shooting missiles into the sea by the day and trying to get some attention out there. And you have Chinese buildup of their military. You have the reemergence of terrorism in Afghanistan from that debacle. ISIS and Al-Qaeda now have a safe haven. And you've got an invasion of illegal immigrants coming across our border. And if you repeal Title 42 deportation authority regarding COVID, then you will have just an absolutely overwhelming wave of legal immigration this summer. So those are the threats we face in today, and I don't think they're getting better anytime soon. In terms of spending, in the President's budget, non-defense spending goes up 11.3% in 2022 and 2023. Defense goes up 4%. Now, given the threats we face, does that make any sense? The answer is no. Over a 10-year window here, non-defense spending goes up 4.5%, defense spending goes up 2.2%. I don't know what my friends on the other side are looking at, but I don't see the world getting safer anytime soon. And we had one heck of a fight to increase defense spending in the last omnibus negotiations, and everything I see on the world stage is deteriorating, and we need more defense spending, not less. Percentage of GDP spent on defense. The chairman said something I agree with. Budgets reflect who you are and what kind of country you want to have and what kind of world we're in. So by 2032, we'll be spending 2.4% of GDP on defense. That will be an all-time historic low. And again, as you look in the out years in the next decade, with China developing hypersonic weapons capability, aircraft carriers, Putin trying to rewrite the map of Europe, the Iranians trying to develop ballistic missiles, North Korea being a bad actor, do you really believe that we should have the lowest spending GDP-wise on defense in the history of the country in the next decade? I do not. We're going to triple the amount of money we pay on interest over the next decade. So $1.1 trillion by FY 2032 will just cover the interest payments. This budget also is about values. in this budget, we do away with the Hyde protections. Most Americans oppose taxpayer-funded money in the area of abortion. That's been the policy of the country for decades. This budget eliminates that restriction so taxpayer dollars can be spent on abortion. I think that is against the will of the American people. So what have we laid out here? We've laid out a budget that does not recognize the threats we face today and in the coming years on defense. We've laid out a budget that's going to explode the amount of interest we pay on the debt, and we all should be working to go the other way. In this budget, we do away with tax advantages that oil and gas companies have to explore for new oil and gas that we own. I find it odd that we're asking OPEC nations to produce more, talking to Venezuela, and maybe encouraging Iran to produce more oil and gas as we shut down our ability in this country to produce oil and gas. Count me in on the climate change front, but count me out when it comes to making our nation more dependent on foreign oil and gas, and that's just a reality we face. So, Mr. Chairman, I think what we have here is a different view of the world in which we live, the priorities we should have in terms of how to defend the nation, and this effort to make us more energy dependent is going to, I think, make the world a more dangerous place. As we're trying to get off oil and gas supplied by Russia and Iran and other bad actors, we're shutting down American production. Inflation is rampant. If this budget ever became law, what you're paying at the gas pump would go up dramatically because our ability to produce oil and gas here at home would be virtually non-existent if this budget became law. If we spend all this money, particularly on the domestic side, the inflationary problems we have today only get worse. So with all due respect, I think everybody on this side of the aisle will oppose this budget, and I would like to have an actual vote on the budget. I'd like to see how many of my Democratic colleagues would vote for this budget. So I welcome a debate on the floor and a vote on this budget as presented, and I hope we can agree on that this is something that should be debated and voted on. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.